the taper. What is it, when you should use it, and some tips so you don't get it wrong. GTN presents, what the f is a taper? Essentially, a taper is just resting so you're fresh and ready for race day. But there's a little bit more to it than that, and if you get it wrong, it can ruin your race. So let's discuss the whats, the whys, and most importantly, the whens of a taper.
Now, without going into the science details too much, optimal levels of muscle glycogen, hormones, enzymes, antioxidants are restored during an effective taper. Basically, all the things that we deplete during hard training bounce back, and the result is, as desired, improved race day performance. But there is a little bit of a nuance to this, because our bodies don't simply recover in a linear fashion. We don't simply do a hard workout, then every hour and every day that passes by we recover more and more and more. In fact, you'll probably be surprised to hear that you might do a hard workout and actually perform better after 24 hours than after 72 hours. And that's due to fluctuations in hormone levels, fuel levels, and simply just fatigue levels. And a taper is the same. A 6-day taper isn't necessarily twice as good as a 3-day taper.
When it comes to how long your taper should be, or when before your race you should start your taper, there are two main factors to consider. Firstly, how much work you've done, how many hours, how much volume of training you've done. If you've built up a lot of fatigue in your body, obviously it's going to take you a while to recover, so you need a longer taper. If you've done less training, shorter sessions and less volume, then of course you can have a shorter taper to get all those energy levels and hormones and muscle functioning back to its optimal levels. And the second factor to consider when considering how long your taper is how important your race is. Because essentially, tapering is stopping training for a while so that you recover. But of course, there's a subsequent dip in your fitness after that race, after that break in training. And if you're tapering every month for 10 to 14 days for every little race, essentially, you're not going to get that much training done in your year. So, as a starting point for an Ironman, you probably want to look at 2 weeks to 3 weeks, 14 to 21 days. Same for a marathon. For a half Ironman or a half marathon, probably 10 to 14 days. And for a shorter race, anywhere from 3 to 7 days taper. If you do find that you weren't feeling great on race day, either you just didn't feel fit or felt flat, or you still felt tired on race day, next time, of course, adjust your taper one way or the other to try and be ready for the next race.
So here's our top taper tips. First off, a taper doesn't necessarily mean that you just spend 2 weeks going easy. A taper actually should include some intensity in there to basically get the blood flowing, the body pumped, and basically get yourself as ready as possible, but with significantly less volume to allow you to recover.
Taper infrequently and only for the biggest races.
Keep the taper short. As James has mentioned already, if you taper for too long, you will lose that form and fitness and that all-important aerobic conditioning with that feel for the effort that you need to hit that intensity, that effort level come race day.
Keep moving to keep yourself loose and supple. You don't want to sit still so much that you get tight and stiff. You want to keep moving, just not so much that you drain your resources.
Don't do anything new, like your first ever sports massage the day before a race.
Don't over or under eat whilst tapering. You need fuel to recover and replenish all those energy reserves, but less than you probably needed when you were in full training, but probably more than a sedentary person needs in a normal day.
And keep your mind busy so you don't get anxious and jittery just before the race.
Ignore the niggles. Niggles during a taper are pretty common, but it's very unlikely that you got injured a few days after you stopped all that hard training. It's far more likely that they're healing pains, growing pains, or just in your head. And the best ignored.
And remember, you don't need to feel great until race morning. Often panic sets in when 48 hours out from the race you feel flat, tired, maybe even lethargic. But trust the process and you will feel great on race morning.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed this video and learned something useful that helps you with your next taper and your next race. Thanks for watching and happy racing.